So when I play guitar here on the YouTubes, I'm generally asked two questions, like all the time. Number one is, can you play AC/DC with that guitar? That's going to be your amp, but sure thing, buddy, not a problem. Number two is it good for high gain? So I'm going to try and help you out there with the high gain one. So we'll take a look at the Epiphone Les Paul Standard 60s that I've rented here, and we'll put it through some paces, and I'll show you that it is, yes, good for high gain. So very quickly, for this video here, I've got to divide it into three sections. Section 1 is 2 sound samples with leads. Section 2 is what I like to call, and it's excessive, is what I like to call one riff, 12 different amp heads. And then section 3 is one riff, 8 different 4x12 cabinets. So we'll start off here with section number 1. So sample number 1 is in DADGAD in C with a lead, and the second sound sample is in E flat standard that has a lead and then ends with a harmony section. On to section 2, let's get obsessive. So I like to call this one here one riff, 12 different amp heads. Now the reason I do this here is because whenever I make these type of videos, you usually get a comment or, you know, like an email or whatever message. I'm old, these things are all the same to me, saying, hey, I came to your channel, I watched this video, great, but I really wanted to see this amp, right? You know, you own that amp, you never play it, and you know, I have that amp and I would have liked to heard that guitar with that amp. So I'm trying to give you a little bit of coverage, but it is very excessive. So here is one riff with 12 different amp heads. See, I told you that was excessive, right? So let's split the difference in a little bit. And we'll do one riff, 8 different 4x12 cabinets. Now I do have to state, these are real 4x12 cabinets that I am capturing in a separate treated room that I'm pointing to for no reason because you can't see it. It's a separate treated room where I have all of my 4x12 cabinets. I capture them with microphones. There's no, I'm too old for IRs. They don't work with me. I grew up playing loud, so that's kind of how I like doing things. But I save my hearing a little bit by having everything in a separate room. And if I want to play with the cabinets, I have long cables, and I'll just go into the room. Easy enough, right? So here's 8 different 4x12 cabinets with one riff over and over, and they all have different speakers in them. that one wasn't nearly as long, right? So that's it for all the different sound samples. But I do like for these videos to kind of try and answer 3 different questions that I generally would get for this particular guitar here, which I have rented. I don't own this guitar. So question number 1, generally to do with the pickups here. So these pickups are very bland, and there's not much definition to them. And to be honest, from what I've read over the last little bit, seems to be the general opinion of these particular pickups here. But they can work for you for sure, whether that's, you know, tossing in an EQ pedal or something. My concern is if I'm playing chords or, you know, anything like that with all 6 strings, the thinner strings here, so the higher strings, they seem to kind of all meld together, and there's not much definition there. But again, you can make it work for you, and, you know, swapping out pickups, not very hard to do, and not very, very expensive to do. And it's fun to try. Number 2, we're going to talk about the neck, because everyone's always concerned over the neck. This is a 60s slim taper, somewhat. So what that means is it's a little thicker than the slim taper that's on an SG. So a little bit thicker. It's not exact. Where it kind of meets the neck heel here, just a little bit before, maybe, you know, I don't know, 6 inches or so. It's a little slimmer than like the Gibson version. It's not uncomfortable by any means. I find it actually a very, very comfortable neck. But yeah, it's not super, super slim and not thick, thick, thick. And again, like I always say in these videos, the going thought is, when it comes to slim taper necks, they promote hand fatigue. Because if you have a thicker neck, your hand's going to be like this, which is a little more natural. If you have a slimmer neck, it's going to be going like this, and you might cramp up your hand. I've never really, I don't remember really experiencing that. But that's, you know, like the going thought and stuff like that. But it's a very comfortable neck. If you like slim, slim, slim necks, not really going to get it with this. But if you like necks that aren't super, super thick, but a little bit on the slim side, this is a good fit. And number 3, I'm just going to say, this is probably not a question that I would generally get, but, well, I mean, it is and it isn't, particular to this guitar. The sizing for the bridge is metric, not imperial. Metric. Why am I saying this? Because these bridges here, and it's very sad to say, the only one that I've had that hasn't had a whole bunch of buzz because of the screws that hold the saddles in is the standard 50s that I've rented. This has deteriorated horribly over the span of 3 weeks that I've rented it, and I'm not playing it all the time. It's just the metal that they use for the screws to help with intonation and to hold the saddles in place, they're not very good material, and most of the Epiphone lock tone, I think, bridges that I've played kind of have the same issue. But again, that standard 50s that I've rented, phenomenal. And there are other people who haven't had that issue, but when it comes to these type of bridges, I usually do get the question of, okay, I want to change my bridge because it's driving me nuts. Or, you know, like, the concern is because it's subpar material is that eventually you're just going to be able to move the saddle with your thumb. So a lot of people will ask, you know, what bridge do I get to replace it? I always used to use Tone Pros when I used non-American guitar, overseas guitars. And what it is, you just order the metric sizing. If you're playing a Gibson and you want to swap things out for a Tone Pros, you order the imperial sizing. It's for the US guitars. So metric sizing. And basically what that is these 2 posts here, that's the sizing that they use. It's set in metric. It's like a generic sizing or spacing between those posts. So if you're having issues with the bridge, it's not expensive and you can do it yourself. Super easy. If you have a tuner and you have like a flathead screwdriver, and like 10 minutes, You can learn how to intonate this just by watching a YouTube video. It's super easy, and it's a great thing to learn because if you change your tuning quite often or change your string height or anything, that can really affect intonation. And if you can do it yourself without taking it to someone and paying them to intonate the guitar for you, you're going to save money, and it's just easier and better to know. Thanks for watching.